Hello, my name is Roy Cohen. I'll be the host on today's Community Forum show, which is a special show. Today, we're going to go on a virtual tour of the Franklin Park Zoo, and our tour guide is none other than John Linehan, who is the president and CEO of Zoo New England, which consists of the Franklin Park Zoo located in Boston and the Stone Zoo located in Stoneham. Good morning, John. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
I'm thrilled to be back, Roy, and thank you very much for that introduction.
Well, it's my pleasure. We have some great videos that some part of the virtual tour of the Franklin Park Zoo. If the people haven't had a chance to go visit the zoo, they're certainly going to want to after they see what we have to show them. Correct?
I certainly hope so. I was hoping you'd give me the chance just to share the mission of the zoo before we launch off into that.
Go for it.
Well, the mission is really important, so thank you. Zoo New England's mission is to inspire people to protect and sustain the natural world for future generations. And we take that really seriously, and we deliver it by creating fun and really engaging experiences that integrate wildlife and conservation programs, as well as research and education. And really, we live that every day. We mean it when we say that's our mission. So the staff is incredibly dedicated and skilled, and that's sort of a backdrop for what we're gonna get to see today.
Speaking of backdrops, I kind of like what you put up there with the, what are those, horses?
These these are actually plains zebras from Tanzania, and I had the opportunity to go on safari just before COVID hit with a group of people from zoo supporters, and so we all went together to Tanzania for about 12 days and had an absolutely incredible experience, and got back just in time not to be quarantined.
Great. All right, are you ready to start showing what's going on?
I'm thrilled to be able to do this.
Here we go. You can explain what's the.
All right, so here we are. We're at Boston Lights, which is an incredible Chinese lantern experience that we have been running for the last 2 years. It's run for about 3 months each time. So it's currently running at Franklin Park Zoo. And you can see it integrates it integrates Chinese lantern making with wildlife. And we have all different themes as you go through. You can see you were just walking in the mouth of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you come out the backside, and it's just been a really thrilling experience. So literally last night, there were 3,000 people at Franklin Park Zoo. So we run the zoo during the day, and then we've been running this light experience since early July, and it's going to run until the end of, until October 11th. So not much time after people get to see that little teaser, but it is something that has been so appealing to families, to couples, to groups, and everybody leaves just feeling really great and having a great time.
It's a beautiful set of lights. So it's obviously it's just at nighttime.
That's right. It's there during the day, so everybody who visits the zoo can see it, but it really comes to life at night. Right. Some of those light sculptures move, and other ones make noise, and some do both. So it's really a feast for the eyes and the ears, and everybody loves it, from little kids to grandmothers.
Very nice, John. Okay, what's the next one that we have?
We're going to jump up to Stone Zoo here, and we've got just a few teasers from Stone Zoo, and right now what we're going to start with is our gibbons, and we've had a really prolific gibbon reproduction program. And so as you see this, so there's otters, and there we haven't been so prolific. We're still trying to breed our otters, and we've had some positive indications there. But between these two are in proximity to each other. Those are North American river otters, and we have white-cheeked gibbons. And here we're seeing a different section of Stone Zoo. This is a North American porcupine, and you can see it kind of up in the tree. Here we have Mexican gray wolves, and we have a pack of 6 brothers together. And that's actually an active reintroduction program that's taking place in Arizona and New Mexico. They were wiped out in the wild completely and have been introduced since, I think, about 1996. So there's a wild population, but these guys really, and they love the cold. I mean, you might think of Mexico as not a cold place, but they live in the mountains, so they're very cold tolerant. Here is another surprising species at Stone Zoo, Caribbean flamingos. They tolerate the cold surprisingly well. We have a very diverse audience that comes to the zoo and to both zoos really. And here's one of our educators associated with a little birthday party for one of the animals that is doing interpretation. And I think, there he goes. That's Gibson, and he's turning 20, and he's getting a special birthday cake there from one of our keepers. And so we make a big thing out of birthdays. We want the kids to relate to the animals in a way where we really increase the empathy. There's we're back to our white-cheeked gibbons. That was the mama. She's sort of blonde colored, and the males turn all black. So it's what we call really strong sexual dimorphism. Here we have colobus monkeys, and that's part of another collaborative breeding program. We're involved in a whole bunch of, back to the gibbons. We're hopping around a lot, or swinging around a lot. There's the mother gibbon, and there's the father gibbon. And if we get a good look at him, you will see that he actually only has one arm. He lost an arm years ago before he came to our zoo, and yet he's been able to adapt. There's one of the offspring actually nursing from his mother. There's a bald eagle, and this is also at Stone Zoo. This was a rehab bird that couldn't be released back out into the wild. It came to us from Alaska. And back to the otters, they're incredible athletes and incredible swimmers, and just so athletic and graceful. And you can actually see some otters now in Stoughton. You can, on some of the ponds, they're moving back. Here we're moving to African spurred tortoises. And this is a species which we rescued all these tortoises. They came from a rescue center down in Arizona, but it's actually an African species in origin. They get very big. They can be well over 100 pounds. And I think these guys are all getting pretty near 100 pounds. So they're still growing. They are eating machines. They eat a lot. And you wouldn't think so with all the, with their slow metabolism, but they're on the move a lot. And they actually will eat stuff that doesn't look very palatable, but that in their environment, that's what they're adapted to digest. Again, back to the gibbons, they're dangerous for me, because when I go and visit them, I have a difficult time tearing myself away. They're always on the move, or mostly always on the move. And we've got this dynamic family group of the parents and two sons. And there's one interacting with a kid at the glass, one of the kids. And just like at Franklin Park Zoo later, you'll see that some of these primates really do like to interact. Here you can see the dad, you see his arm, and he gets up there and swings around as well as the kids with just one arm. And his wife, so to speak, who is also equally athletic. This is also at Stone Zoo, and this is a recent birth. We just had a baby Linnaeus two-toed sloth born, and there's the parents, both parents, and he's getting some of his first tastes of solid food here. She just ate an egg, and he's licking off some of the pieces from her lips. And these are great parents. I think this is their fifth offspring.
Wow.
And so they have one every once in a while, maybe once a year. And again, this is another collaborative breeding program. You can see her sitting on mom right there. Mom doesn't put her down for many months. So it's they're fascinating animals. And I think, some of what we just saw are from Asia, some are from Africa, and some are from South America, South and Central America.
Right. They can tolerate the different seasons that we...
Well, the gibbons, the ones that really swung around a lot, are pretty cold hardy, as are the colobus monkeys, the black, some people call them skunk monkeys because they're black and white.
Right.
The sloths, not well. So they're behind glass in a climate controlled environment year round. And I actually got to see sloths in the wild when I was down in Panama, and got to rescue one that was trying to make it across the street once.
Yeah.
He wasn't gonna make it with all the traffic.
When he got there.
He did. We actually got a stick, a friend and I, and got him to hook onto it and carried him the rest of the way across.
Huh.
Because when they're on the ground, they can't even get off they can't get their body off the ground. They have to reach and just drag their body across the ground. And there were these cars flying each way. And the sloth was not, its future looked very short when we came across it, and we helped it get the rest of the way across. They often don't come down from trees for a long time. But so that's why, sloths have an amazing anatomy and physiology that's adapted to hanging upside down all the time. And they are amazingly strong, and they've got these big hooks for claws. And they're able to hold on and sleep upside down, hanging off of a branch.
Wow.
So they're amazing animals. And for some reason, people are really thrilled, especially young girls. They just have a fascination with sloths these days. So it's one of our more popular animals. And we actually have some of the parents' offspring at Franklin Park in a mixed exhibit with what we call cotton top tamarins. I don't think I gave you any video for that, but they're pretty interesting and do mix well with other species, neither one being very aggressive.
We'll have to take care of that for the next show.
There's a lot more footage than we'll have the opportunity to show today. And there is just, the zoos are, we have the light show. Soon we'll have the zoo lights at Stone Zoo, which has been going on for over 25 years now. And that's an outdoor experience really centered around Christmas and the holidays. And it goes from Thanksgiving till New Year's. And it has been immensely popular with people and has become a real family tradition.
Mhm.
But I think one of the things that people should remember is every visit to the zoo is different. We make it dynamic. We're forever making improvements in the zoos, and that keeps me busy, but and my whole team. But we're always doing something to make it a dynamic, ever-changing experience. And when you have live animals, that's part of the equation anyways, because they have babies and there's changes in relationships, and that so we have always have new babies coming down the line, and I think we might have some more babies as we're moving forth in our video today, between the videos and the pictures.
What are you doing about the precautions that you have to take with the pandemic, John? Is there anything different?
It had profound impacts on all, it had profound impacts on everybody. The ones we have to do in the zoo is, for example, we were closed for 10 weeks. And that, as you can imagine, we lost $4 million.
Wow.
But we've recovered since then. And people have really loved coming to the zoo because it's a great destination that's primarily outdoors. And so we've had people coming to the zoos in bigger numbers than ever. But nevertheless, we have to employ safety. Any indoor experiences, people have to bring a mask and wear a mask when they're indoors. If they're in a situation where they're getting too crowded, we ask them to put their mask on. But for the most part, people are able to spread themselves out. Franklin Park Zoo is 72 acres and Stone Zoo is 26. So people can really spread themselves out and have a wonderful time and not worry about infections. But we've had to go to time ticketing. For a while it was just time ticketing, and we had very low capacity rates, and we sort of slowly have worked them up to higher levels at both zoos. And then we've also had to we've really pushed for staff vaccinations and staff mask wearing, and we've also we've had so many changes in the way we do things. For a long time, we were putting off routine medical procedures with our animals. We've now begun vaccinating all the animals, and we're doing really well. The staff, one thing I don't think we convey anywhere in today's slides or video is the incredible training the keepers do with the animals, which is really fascinating to see. And it's all centered around the animals taking an active part in their own healthcare. So we train animals to voluntarily accept injections. And it's not that different from the clicker training people do with dogs. And so it's based on positive reinforcement and rewards. So, I mean, we're doing cardiac ultrasounds on gorillas, and we've got gorillas that we can examine their teeth, and lions, and that'll actually open their mouths and hold it while you do dental exams. And the keeper can take a picture of anything they're suspect of that goes to the vets and our dentists. And but cardiologists will review our ultrasounds, and sometimes they come right on site. That's another thing I should mention, and I'm probably wandering in a lot of different directions.
No, you're doing okay.
We get great support from the Boston medical community and veterinary community, you know, that allows us to bring in specialists to help us. And later on, we're going to see, for example, a gorilla and her baby. It's part of our gorilla family.
Right.
We actually had to do a C-section for that birth because she had a condition that also afflicts a significant number of women called placenta previa, where the placenta is actually blocking the birth canal, and you have to take that baby by C-section. We had the best OBGYN people in the city here helping us with that. And then we had the best neonatologists helping us with that. And they were from Brigham and Women's, and they were really scrambling and fighting over who would volunteer to do this work with us and do a C-section with our vets on our gorilla. So it's really exciting to have that kind of support. And with it, we're really reaching new heights.
That's great. That's good to hear. When you're talking about vaccinations, do you worry about COVID, animals catching the COVID or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely, Roy. There are the species that are identified as being susceptible to it. They've done molecular studies to identify those species. And so we're now vaccinating. So we've got a vaccine that is being donated to the zoo. It's been okayed by the the state vet, and as well as the USDA. And nobody's at our zoo or any other zoos have had any negative reactions to it. There have been a lot of animals that have gotten COVID, not in our zoo, but at the Bronx Zoo, at the National Zoo, you know, at I think the St. Louis Zoo, at the Louisville Zoo, a lot of big cats and a lot of primates. And we knew they were going to be susceptible, which is why we cut back on those procedures, not only for the animal, but for the staff. We were trying not to have everybody, when you do these medical procedures, everybody's got their heads together on it. So
Sure.
The passing of germs is easy. So we cut back on them unless there are emergencies, and we're back to doing more of them again. But we're doing these vaccinations really as fast as we can, but we're doing them through that training that I was describing, where the animals come up and they put a shoulder up to the mesh, and the keeper can just reach in and give them a vaccination, or reach through with the syringe and give them a vaccination, and then they just walk away. It's not a big deal. Like when I was a keeper back, you know, I've been at this for 40 years now. When I was a keeper, we used to have blow darts that we would load up with these vaccines, and you'd wait till the animal was in the right position and then blow dart it. And it was traumatic because they knew what a blowpipe was. And so as soon as you pulled that out, they're trying to hide. They're like, no, don't do that to me. So it's gone from being a negative experience to a positive one.
That's great, John. It's important, I guess, to make sure they stay healthy.
Absolutely. And so they get lots of vaccinations, they get lots of medical checkups, and with this training, we don't have to do like when I was a keeper, anesthetize the animal, which is always dangerous. And then the readings you get, say, on heart rate or blood pressure, are not their true heart rate or blood pressure. And so, you know, it's under the effects of the anesthesia. So it's going to be different from what it would be if we didn't have all this training in place.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's good to hear how you take care of them. So you haven't had any cases of COVID with your animals, I would
We're
assume.
really lucky, and we haven't had any transmission within the zoo between staff or between staff and animals, which is how the animals in those other zoos have gotten it. Is it's usually from an asymptomatic zookeeper who is working with those animals, which is why we, for example, we even cut back on that training during this period, because the keeper is in close proximity to the animal, and if they happen to be asymptomatic yet still able to transmit it, that's how those other animals got infected.
Let me step back with you on one of your slides that we had of the bald eagle. You said that was sent to you from Alaska?
Yeah, so that's what we call a rehabilitated animal. I don't know if you could notice, but it's blind in one eye.
No, I
And it
didn't.
was injured. It was injured in Alaska, and so that animal was rehabbed to the extent that it would be healthy, but it was deemed unreleasable, and so it couldn't be released back into the wild. So they look for homes for unreleasable birds of prey like that,
Mhm.
and we take a number of them. We have taken a number of them over the years, but they're very long lived, and they live a great life, but they can no longer take care of themselves as they would have to in the wild. You know, bald eagles, all birds of prey need good vision in both eyes, because their depth perception is really critical as they come in with their talons on their prey. They have to know right where the prey is going to be. And with only one eye working, they don't have good depth perception.
Yeah,
So, and he's also got a wing.
I see a lot of those National Geographic where
Yeah.
they zoom in and they wind up catching fish or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
It's amazing.
Eagles are real fish specialists. They're good at catching fish too.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to take a look at it, because I remember on a trip to Alaska, it was shortchanged there. We only saw one eagle and one bear, and
Wow.
that was unfortunate, because that's one of the things you want to see when you go to a trip like that.
Absolutely. And then the population of bald eagles has rebounded to the extent that they were able to take them off the endangered species list. So the Endangered Species Act has really worked for an awful lot of species that were on the brink earlier. You know, even something that we now view as common, the American alligator, was once on the endangered species list, and because of the actions that were put in place, we were able to bring them back to the extent that, as you know, people, if you go down south, you can eat alligator now.
You
The
can feed them?
numbers are back. What's that?
Would you say you could feed them?
No, people eat them.
Oh, eat them.
Yeah,
They make luggage out of them too, don't they?
that's right.
Shoes?
That's right. And shoes and belts, and that's right.
Um, I'm not too fond of alligators or crocodiles.
We have alligators at Stone Zoo in the warm season. We take them on loan from another place, and then at Franklin Park Zoo we have what's called the dwarf forest crocodile, which full grown is only 5 to 6 feet long, but it's well adapted to life in the forest. But it's very different than the Nile crocodile or the big saltwater crocs that come from Australia. These guys full grown are only 5 or 6 feet, but that helps them survive better in the rainforest environment.
Oh, unbelievable.
The animal world is a fascinating place, and the more you learn, the more amazed you are. The longer you work with some of these animals, the more amazed you are with them, you know, and their brains and how smart they are in their own ways that have evolved to survive in their environments.
I was going to say that's survival. They have to be smart.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
So you just, you know, what I love about what I do is you continue to learn every day, and it makes it fun. And I love when I can go home and say, you know, I learned another new thing, that I have a new appreciation for these animals.
Unbelievable. You should write a book.
I should, because we're not scratching the surface of all my experiences in the zoo over these 40 years, but frankly, I don't have time to write a book. This place is keeping me too busy as it is, as well as my civic time in Stoughton.
Going to the kids' football games.
Well, and I also serve on like the Community Preservation Committee and the Open Space Committee and a town meeting rep and on and on.
Well, you ought to carry around a little recorder and just keep inputting, and someday it'll all turn into a book.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've had incredible adventures and incredible experiences that make me love coming to work every day, despite being here for 40 years.
Sure. I can tell you really love your work just by looking at you. You speak with a smile on your face all the time.
Well, you can't help but do it. You know, not only do we have a positive impact in bringing a great attraction to the city, but all the conservation work we're doing, all the education work we're doing, and really, I mean, one thing I find energizing is the smiles and just the families that come in here and build a lifelong set of memories for everybody in the family. And it's often multi-generational, so it's a great place in that way.
That's good. All right, John, why don't we move ahead with some of
Sure.
the some more pictures?
Yeah, so this is Cleopatra on the left, and her baby is Ptolemy. So Ptolemy is spelled with a P-T, O-L-E-M-Y, but that was actually Cleopatra's youngest son. So the person who named Ptolemy had great creativity and did their homework. And so he's getting bigger and bigger and growing like a weed, and he's playing with mom here. We have their dad, Innocencio, in the next exhibit over, and you don't really introduce dads back to their offspring. Like many species in the rainforest, these guys are solitary by nature, except when they're raising their offspring or coming together to make offspring. But this is a big victory. This took decades of effort to have that baby successfully born. Here we have a yellow-footed tortoise that's one of our ambassador animals. And so these kids are learning all about tortoises, learning all about the environment. And so I think this is Butch. And he's grazing on some grass out there, but it gives the opportunity for those up-close experiences. And we have we have free roaming peacocks that walk on the grounds at Franklin Park Zoo. This is a couple of kids peering into our prairie dog exhibit. This is a family with giraffes in the background. This is a volunteer group. We do lots with volunteer groups and regular volunteers. People going in to see our butterflies. And that's a great seasonal experience. And here's our little guy that his first birthday is coming up shortly. His name is Pablo, and we actually auctioned off his naming rights. He's our first male offspring that's been born at Franklin Park Zoo. That's his 40-year-old mother behind him. Look at him. He is just great, and he loves to meet kids at the glass. And I have some great pictures we won't get to see today, but that's him playing with some of the wood wool, and that's donated from a florist that helps us to do what we call environmental enrichment. So we bring different things into the animals' environments every day. And so today they had a big load of wood wool put into their exhibit, and he's having fun playing with it. As I said, his mother's now 40 years old. She's had, I think he's her fifth offspring. And I don't know if we have a picture of dad, but together they've had 5 offspring. And he likes to ride around on mom's back, but also he's got 2 older sisters in the exhibit, and they like to kidnap him once in a while and pretend that he's their baby. It's just like little girls with dolls. So Pablo is another guy that if you come out to the zoo, you'll get to see. And right now we're in the middle of building a whole new gorilla habitat outdoors. We have a great one indoors, which is where we were seeing him. But right now, under construction at Franklin Park Zoo is a great new gorilla habitat. You're actually going to walk in and be in the middle of their habitat, surrounded by gorillas. And it's going to be an incredible experience.
I know we've talked about this before, John, but none of them are escaping or anything lately, have they?
No, as a matter of fact, I just heard, little Joe, people can see him on exhibit almost every day or every other day. He's the one who escaped, and he's doing great. That was now 18 years ago. Can you believe that?
No, he's something.
We just had the anniversary 2 days ago. It was September 28th of 2003, and a day I'll never forget.
You didn't walk around with a smile that day.
No, I did not. I had to walk around with a dart gun and find him and bring him back to the zoo. But while we're on the subject, I want to give great kudos to the police department, the Boston Police, the state police, the Animal Rescue League, Boston Animal, all of them came and helped us and provided support. The Massachusetts Environmental Police. So we do drills for that sort of thing, Roy. Just we hope it never happens again, but you have to be prepared. And so we actually involve all those forces in doing drills with us. And so they're great collaborators, and we just want to ensure that, as we did with Little Joe, people are safe and we can bring them back alive and save themselves if that ever happens.
Right. It's 18 years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday.
Amazing. Believe me, I can bring myself back to that moment. I'm going through the woods with my dart gun and with a cop that I gave a dart gun to, and the SWAT guy they put behind us as we're looking for him. I'd already darted him once and just wanted him to settle in. And it's a long story, but for another time.
Sure. That's great. All right, John, we have some more videos, unless you have more you want to talk about before we hit them.
No, feel free to go on, and we'll just continue. Well, this is a good one to launch on. This is a photo, I guess, and this is a Blandings turtle. So, oh, it's a video, and that's a Blandings turtle. That's another Blandings turtle, and this is an endangered species in the state, or threatened species in the state. And we've been working very hard. You know, the zoo has a whole field conservation team that is out doing conservation work throughout Massachusetts and sometimes beyond. We were just doing some work in New Hampshire. And we're collaborating with Mass Wildlife, Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, to be official, and others to save species like this. And this species numbers had declined precipitously. And one of the things we're doing now is a head starting program where we are actually tracking these guys. We put, I don't know if we have a picture later, but we glue little antennas onto their shell, onto females. We can follow them with radio telemetry until they nest, and then we protect the nests, or we take the eggs and artificially incubate them, and we bring them into classrooms, and we have kids in classrooms raising these turtles through their first year, you know, over the course of a school year. And then they do a field trip and they do releases back into the wild of the turtle hatchlings that are now, because of the artificial rearing, the size of a 4 or 5 year old turtle. And this is Emily doing a program teaching people about some of these projects. This is up in, I think, Lexington. And there's a spotted turtle. That's another species where you can see the antenna on that one. And these are two of our field people working on measuring. They tracked it down using that radio telemetry. So they have to get weights and measures on these turtles to see their growth rate in the wild and to assure that they're surviving. So this is another, this is what they call a species of special concern, actually living in the city of Boston. This swamp is in the city. And so we have kids in classrooms in Boston raising spotted turtles and then re-releasing them back into their habitat, and we're building those numbers up. So we like to get lots of interns involved, we get volunteers involved. It's a big commitment because you have to commit for a long time. You can see this young lady is holding the radio telemetry equipment, which tells you about how far and in what direction they are. Then you follow and you walk through that swamp and track them down. And so this is with another one. She's weighing and measuring this turtle. And again, calculating growth rates and health and how they're doing in the wild. So we're also trying simultaneously to increase the diversity of people that are involved in conservation and in animal care and in veterinary medicine. You know, the zoo has a diverse staff, but there's more room for diversity, particularly in those disciplines. So this was she was a former zoo teen and then moved up to being an intern. And this is our director of conservation. And he has done so much. These people are all incredibly skilled and dedicated. This is a picture of another conservation project you might not think the zoo would be involved with, but this is called the New England Blazing Star, this particular plant. Really beautiful and really important for pollinators. And we're helping, again, working with Mass Fish and Wildlife and actually folks at the Arnold Arboretum. And we're working with folks from the New England Wildflower Society to bring those numbers back. And you can see that pollinator right on there. So we're doing different plots. We're doing plantings. We're actually raising some of the seedlings at the zoo. And we're collaborating with some university partners as well on some of our plant conservation. So it's a gorgeous plant that almost went extinct here in New England, crowded out by invasives, and it likes to grow really in sandy, tough soils. So we're working on plant conservation. We're working on conservation of fish. We're working on conservation of even bugs, and so the bottom line is, to be successful in saving species, you have to preserve biodiversity. And particularly for pollinators, you need plants that are going to blossom at different times of the year that they'll be attracted to and be fed by. And so we've got an awful lot of conservation work going, and it just seems to keep growing. And Mass Fish and Wildlife is giving us various contracts to work on different projects all over the state, and giving us permits to collect these turtles and raise them and release them. So they've been a great partner, and it just makes it really exciting. We're not only conserving species through captive reproduction, but through supplementing wild populations. And John is a former Stoughton resident that we just went by on camera there, and he's become a full-time field person who is training lots of these young people to become conservationists. So there's so many facets to what we're doing, Roy, and it makes it really exciting. And lots of our other staff that are primarily zoo staff get to go out and do field conservation with our field conservation team. And so there's just so much going on. We also have a new society we've started. It's called the Zoo New England Conservation Society. And that allows people for a separate membership. Some people may not even be interested in being a zoo member. We now have over 27,000 households that have a family membership to the zoo. But some people are just more concerned about conservation of the wild. So we have a separate membership they can take out for this conservation society. And they can actually have field experiences for them and their family, doing things like what you just saw, whether it be tracking and measuring turtles or collecting eggs or saving wildflowers and replanting areas and removing invasives. So it's a great new initiative that we put together, and getting it funded, you know, that society helps to fund our conservation efforts. We're also constantly asking for donations, and we're asking for grants from foundations, but we're also, one of the new initiatives we're just starting, Roy, is launching our own license plate, which is going to fund our conservation work, both here in Massachusetts and internationally. We've got projects for frogs in Panama. You know, frogs were being wiped out in Panama by a fungus. And we started creating safety populations of frog species that would otherwise be extinct. And in many cases, those frogs are gone from the wild now, and our safety populations still exist. We took them in collaboration originally with the Houston Zoo, Zoo New England and the Houston Zoo, but then we added the National Zoo, the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, and we actually have the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute whose home is in Panama. And so we've got a great team now, and we've got a number of species of frogs where we have hundreds of specimens And we're just beginning to experiment with reintroduction back into the wild, because in many cases, these species are gone from the wild. This fungus killed them all. But we've got another project for the Central American river turtle in Belize, where we're helping both educate and doing that head starting for turtles to build up their numbers again. But we've got projects in Central Asia that for the snow leopard in Mongolia. And we're working in collaboration with the Snow Leopard Trust. And that's mostly where we're supporting their good work. But we've got a new project we just launched in Madagascar for lemurs and for people.
Mm.
And so we're running around the globe, but this is one where we'll be deeply involved with our zoo staff. We also have other organizations, and actually some of the doctors and medical professionals from Brigham and Women's. And what we're doing is bringing better health to the ecosystem, protecting the biodiversity, while also giving food security to the people who live in that area, and education and healthcare. So it's where we can help save species by bringing value to those species to the people who live in that area. So rather than going out and chopping down the forest, they see value in the forest. They don't want to go out and eat all the lemurs. They are, in fact, we're going to give them reliable food sources, whether it be starting them with chicken farms or goats or, egg production or plants that will grow in their environment. So we're working on a lot of different levels, and it gets, it's both exciting and sometimes a bit overwhelming how many things we're doing.
Well, that's great, though. You're a good man, John, and your work is very much appreciated, I'm sure.
Well, thank you. We're dedicated. We've got, projects on the African continent for giraffes and cranes and gorillas at each end. We've East and West Africa, South Africa. So it's a big continent, but there's a lot of work needed. And we collaborate with a lot of the other AZA accredited zoos and aquariums on a lot of these projects. And that's a big difference. To be AZA accredited, we basically share all these animals amongst ourselves and are breeding them for the animals' sake, so that we maintain genetic diversity for these animals' health and their long-term well-being. And then we also share ideas, with environmental enrichment for the animals, so that everybody gets to see what's working well, and how are we able to get these species in captivity to really show all their natural behaviors and show people just how amazing they are.
Mm-hmm. What about volunteering at the zoo? People watching this show, they must then say, I'd like to be part of that. How can I volunteer?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Roy. Volunteering at the zoo can range from putting a group together where you could do a one-time volunteer effort, and we did see a quick view of Patrick, our volunteer coordinator, but we do it at both zoos. What we've seen is a major drop off in volunteerism since the advent of COVID. And so we need more volunteers. We want, especially for people to become interpreters, to help share all this fascinating information about the animals and their habitats with our visitors. So we need, and it's a long-term commitment. It takes a long time to learn a lot, and then we want you to stick around and continue to share that with our visitors and get them so they're as excited about these animals as we are every day.
That's great. The other thing on a not so pleasant topic, occasionally you see things like elephants being slaughtered for their tusks, and with the possibility that they'll become extinct with all of the people that are out, the poachers that are out there doing what they do.
Yeah.
What do we do about that?
That's another great question, Roy. We've been deeply involved at the zoo trying to get legislation passed in Massachusetts to make it so that you can't sell ivory or rhino horn within the state. Because right now, interstate sale of it is already illegal, but
right.
In-state sale is still legal.
It is?
It is. And so we're trying to get the legislature to pass an in-state law. And I've testified any number of times before legislative committees to try to get this passed. It hasn't passed over the past 4 years, but we're going to keep trying. And I think we're going to be successful one of these days, but it's crazy. And, you know, it's a complicated issue. Ultimately, the poachers themselves most often aren't the villains in this whole story. It's the people who are paying them. They're just trying to feed their kids. So in Africa, you often have to pay for your kid to go to school.
Right.
And so they're just trying to get their kids into school. But, you know, there's a major market in China, but before we throw any stones, there's a major market in the United States. We're looked at as the second biggest market for ivory and rhino horn. And so we've got to get our own house in order. You know, rhino horn in the Far East is considered not so much an aphrodisiac as a medicine. And the reality is it's the same material as our fingernails. You know, so there's nothing magical about it, but these are, you know, cultural practices that have existed for centuries, and to undo them takes time. And there are multiple efforts to undo them at the cultural level. But in the meantime, there's a market. And so, you know, even wearing ivory is in some ways encouraging others to wear ivory. And the people who smuggle this stuff, they make it look like it's antiqued ivory so that it's legal to import. If it came from pre-1973, I think it's still legal to import. And so they soak it in teas. They have all kinds of tricks, and sometimes they call it mastodon ivory. Sometimes it is, you know, which is actually more and more mastodon ivory has become available as global warming as climate change has unveiled more and more dead mastodons, particularly in Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is faked as well, and they have all kinds of techniques, and you almost need a microscope to tell the difference. And so we just don't want it to be on the market. You know, it is driving animals to extinction. It's costing people their lives. You know, when there's intervention between poachers and guards and rangers, people get killed. Not to mention a lot of organized crime in various parts of Africa are the ones that are benefiting by the ivory trade. That's how they're funding their operations. And some of these groups that have been kidnapping school kids are also funding their operations that way. You know, they make these kids into kid soldiers and the little girls into slaves. And so it's a sad story, and it's funding really bad things. So we need to come to grips with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's get away from this particular subject. I noticed in the list of items that you wanted to talk about 2 zoos, 1 organization.
Yeah, so it's an interesting model, and we've got Franklin Park Zoo and we've got 2 zoos, but ultimately we have 1 organization. So it's almost like a hospital or a bank with a branch location. So we have everything we do is pretty unified. We have different collections, different animals at each zoo, very different experiences. So I strongly encourage everybody to try to visit both, because they're very different experiences, but it's 1 organization. And if you get yourself a zoo membership, you actually are a member to both zoos. Not to mention your membership will also get you half off at over 100 other zoos and aquariums across the country. We jointly enter into those agreements. So it's a great value, and you can come to the zoo. We have some people who come to the zoo every single week, or some multiple times per week. And sometimes I run into stay-at-home dads that it's a weekly occurrence with their kids, and their kids actually grow up with our animals. And so these kids become so smart and so knowledgeable about animals and science, and it's absolutely astounding to talk to some of them sometimes.
Every day is different.
It is. And they never get tired of it.
Right.
So we try to build in a lot of events that appeal, not just, we have kids events, we have adult events. We have events that are geared toward in-betweens, the brew at the zoo and ales and tales, but we also have lectures, and we have programs for moms that we call it stroller safaris, moms with strollers, where they can both learn and get exercise together as a group. So we create these groups, and people become friends, and I think it's one of the magical things about the zoo. I don't care where you're from, what your culture is, everybody's interested in animals. And they come together here, and they have a common interest in a common language, and we hear a lot of languages spoken in the zoo, but it's something that brings people together in a very positive way.
That's nice. You're looking for donors?
We're always looking for donors. We've come a long way, from when I came to the zoo 40 years ago, but particularly in the last few years. But we've got big plans to make our zoos better and better, and better for the animals and better for everybody coming to the zoo. As I said, we're working on completing that gorilla exhibit right now. We have plans for the next 2 exhibits. And so there's a lot going on, and we love to have people get involved and donate not only their money, but their time, and get involved and understand what's going on here. It's
Right.
a really fun and exciting place to be.
What does that future look like?
I think the future of zoos in general, is just getting stronger. Some people, sometimes I feel like they question, are zoos relevant anymore? The anti-zoo people, they think the zoos are irrelevant. Zoos are actually more and more appealing, but most importantly, I think they're becoming that connection for so many urban people, the only connection to nature. And so we have programs, actually, we have educational programs where we actually take people out into Franklin Park or out into the Middlesex Fells, and we do nature walks where we're actually counting individual species. And so the zoos are more relevant now than ever. We're bringing in so much science, our zoo, changing subjects on you again. We're working on becoming the genomics capital of North America for zoo animals. We have a great relationship with the Broad Institute, which is one of the world's leading genomics centers. And we're studying diseases and disease processes that are related to genomics that are also affecting humans. So we've got a project for gorillas having to do with cardiac issues. Another project for black-footed ferrets, which were thought to be extinct here in North America in the West. And but the captive population is afflicted with heart issues. So we're working through that. We've got a project for meerkats. We've got a project for rattlesnakes. A species like rattlesnakes, as you might know, they still occur in the Blue Hills, and they're very important for the ecosystem, for the health of all of us ultimately. And not to mention the incredible stuff that's been done with rattlesnake venom in terms of being an asset in our medical community for painkillers, for various other medicines, just a plethora of different benefits that they've used something like that for. Some of those frogs we're saving also have human benefits for medicine because they have toxins in their skin that they've evolved to protect themselves that are now being used in the medical industry to save people. So it's all about appreciating this incredible biodiversity that we have. And in some cases, utilizing what we learned from it. There's a whole new science called biomimicry, where we're learning lessons from nature that are applicable to human needs.
Nice.
And whether it be, as I understand it, fiber optics originally came from an examination of polar bear hair, which is hollow, which, polar bears are up in the Arctic. How do they stay warm? Well, as a matter of fact, their fur takes the sunlight and brings it down to their skin in a way that just carries that and doesn't lose the insulative value of their fur. And so it's amazing. The lessons we can take from nature are amazing. And in many cases, they can become whole industries for humans.
Can I assume that most of this information that you're now coming out with is available on your website?
Some of it. I'm rambling off in different
No,
directions,
you're
but yeah,
doing
there's
all right.
lots of it. There's lots of it available on our website. Now, our website is really deep, so you can learn an awful lot about our work in genomics or about we have a One Health program with Harvard Medical School where fourth-year med students are coming in to work with our vets, and they're learning why biodiversity is so important and how diseases progress in animals versus humans, and so the learning is just endless. And yeah, we address both those topics in our website. You might have to dig a bit because it is deep.
What is the website?
It's very simply zoonewengland.org. So one big word, Zoo New England with no punctuation.org.
Okay, I have your mission statement that I'll read. Zoo New England's mission is to inspire people to protect and sustain the natural world for future generations by creating fun and engaging experiences that integrate wildlife and conservation programs, research, and education. Sounds like everything we talked about today.
I hope so, because that's what we live by, and we're constantly measuring ourselves against our mission.
You're doing great. And your phone number is 617-541-5466, correct?
Yep, that's right. Those last four letters spell the word, the last four numbers will spell the word lion on your phone.
How clever.
Well,
Well, we got a minute left, John.
well, all those highfalutin things we are so passionate about, you can start out by just coming to the zoo to have fun. And I hope we instill just a little bit of that conservation ethic and that appreciation for the incredible creatures that we share the planet with.
How about something like Stoughton Day at the zoo?
I've thought about having days like that where, you can have some buses or people can meet up at the high school and drive in together. I've never done it, but I would be willing to collaborate on developing something like that.
We'll
We'll
talk
give
about it.
discount. People will show their driver's license and they'll get a discount to the zoo on Stoughton Day, and
Let's
or
do
with
it.
pre-sale tickets. It'd
Let's
be
do
great.
it.
I'll walk around with everybody.
John, a pleasure to have you on board. I really enjoyed the interview, and again, keep up the great work and keep that smile going.
Thank you, Roy. It's been a pleasure to be back with you, and I love what I do, but I also respect what you just did in terms of the technology with this first launch of using a high-tech video and photos as part of this whole Zoom presentation.
Tough being a one-man show.
It is.
But it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, John.
All
Appreciate
right, Roy.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.